actually wanted to start with the question you posed to on Facebook the other day about legacy. What got you thinking about that?
Hmm. I think that's something I think about often, if not every day, because when you're in prison for decades, you see a lot of the people you grew up with, that you were close with, that they pass away, they die.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think about what you remember about them the most. And so when you think about that, and I remember years ago, um, we were doing a writing exercise at New Folsom, and it was in one of my creative writing classes, and they asked us to write a piece on what would you want to be remembered by or for, and what will be your legacy. And so I had to think long and hard on that in terms of the person that people knew me as opposed to the person I have become and matured to be. And I started to realize that at that point, I desperately needed to do something to change that perception about who I was. And so, people remembered me for being, a young drug dealer, someone who was, quick to enforce violence in the streets in terms of, defending mine. And I would just, I thought about all of that, right? And it just didn't sit well with me. But then as time grew on and I started interacting with other people, and I just kind of wanted to see where people's minds were in terms of how they were living. What's important to you? What is your legacy? Are you someone who life is just about getting up, going to work, and paying your bills? Are you someone that's here that's trying to affect change in some level, on some scale? It doesn't matter how big or how small. And how are people going to remember you for that? In what spaces and what times? And, for me, it was just a question I felt I needed to ask a few people, not just people on Facebook, but I messaged that to some friends and stuff too, because I feel like when you're building a movement, it's not necessarily that you're focused on legacy, but people who tend to focus on legacy are not caught up in the current state of affairs of times, if you get what I'm saying. They're not consumed with the world and life as it is, but more so how they're going to leave it and their impression that they leave on it. So that was why I asked that question. And for me, it's kind of like the gauge of all gauges of character.